everybody, we're back for part 2 of making the blocks for the Just Say Boo quilt. So let me show you how I have it all set up, and then I will tell you the process I go through before I start doing any kind of sewing.
This is what it looks like, and this is my first square that I'm going to make, and I have laid all my pieces on this little design wall that goes for this square, and this one is the bats. Then underneath it is the next one. And this one is the Wonky Stars. And then they're all laid out here. And I have a larger design board that I put all the fabrics on. And then all I did was looked at my sheet here. And I said for A, I need 6 12 by 5. Laid them out. I took all the pins out that I had pinned, and I put the little clips. I ironed them all to make sure they were ironed. And then I just went by this paper starting at the top. Because if for some reason I had missed any of this on the white while I was cutting out my fabrics, or I've misplaced it, now I can go and hunt for it and get it together and put it on this little design board here. And then I just go to the C next, the D, the E, and the F. And then I've got it all laid out. And then all I do is set my directions on top of it. I'm going to set it aside while I do the first one. For this first week, block number 1, and I'm calling the bats block number 1, there are only 2 colors, white for the background and black for the bats. If you're making your own colors, then your bats can be any color you'd like. The first thing it's going to have us do is we are taking our 3 4x4 inch squares, and we're going to make half square triangles with them. And we're going to mark them. Now, if you have a sewing machine that has the little beam on it, which is what Yvette had, or if you want to mark it, that's fine too. But if you've got your beam, it'll show you how to go down there. And you wouldn't have to mark it. Now, make sure you grab your 4-inch squares, not your 4.5, or you'll be cutting out more 4.5-inch squares. Okay? Let's do that first. You want to mark it on the wrong side. And I will use a light colored pink. And keep in mind that whatever the size of your tip is will affect where this goes. So a lot of people will just take their ruler, put it right down the middle, and go with it. I put my pin on the tip top of the corner. And then I match it to the bottom down here before I do my drawing. And I'm going to draw a broken line, which represents my center. And then I'm going to go 1/4 inch to the right of the line. And on my ruler, which if you've all been following me, and I will show a close-up of it for you, I always take my ruler, and instead of putting the line, the 1/4 inch line on top of the marking, I come over to the left, because you lose a little bit with your pencil mark or your pen mark or whatever you're marking with. And you can see the yellow line where my 1/4 inch is versus my pen, which is the pink. And then all I do is press down on my ruler so it doesn't move, and I slowly make a line. It does not need to be dark. It can be light. And then I'll turn it, and I'll do the same thing. Now, if you have a rotating board or mat, you can use it. I'll show you how to use this little one that I do mine on with the next one. But this is what you do if you don't have it. Now, let's say, I'm going to get this little mat here. And this is just my little mat. I use it on the side over here for my scissors. This little mat here, it will hold this fabric. Okay, and it actually will rotate. See, no problem whatsoever rotating it. And so what I'll do is I'll mark it just like I did before. And this is how I do my half square triangles. Then I move my ruler over right before the line. And then when I'm done with that, pick up my ruler. This way you don't have to pick up your fabric. You don't have to shift it and move it around. And then mark the other. And we'll do all of them like that. Then we'll come back and we'll sew them. Now, if you want, you could mark your dark fabric. You won't see this because when you get done sewing this, you're going to be sewing on these lines. And I'm using the friction pen, so this will go away with the, let me turn it right side up, with the iron. And I know that y'all are thinking, well, wait, it leaves a little mark. But keep in mind, it leaves a white mark. And I'm marking it on white fabric, so you're not going to see the mark. Now, if I was marking on the black fabric, you would see it. Now, if you have them all marked, you're going to take your 4-inch little black, or whatever color you're using, and we're going to put the right sides together. Now we're going to sew it. We're going to chain stitch it. And I'm using a 2.5-inch length. I always use a 12 needle. I've got my sewing machine set up already. So let's get started. Now you won't need a leader ender because we're not starting at the tip of our fabric. We're starting off to the side. So your machine shouldn't be grabbing your fabric at all. I'm using white thread. You can use a cream if you'd like because of the black. We'll cut these apart and then I'll turn them around. We'll continue doing the other side before we cut them out. When you cut these, you want to make sure that your ruler fits off of the surface of your fabric. So you want it off of the top and the bottom so that you don't damage your ruler. And that's all we're doing. I'm lining it up on the dotted line. Now we're going to iron them open before we square them up. Now we can use a block lock, which is what a lot of people like to use, or you can use a regular ruler. I will show you both ways. The purpose of the block lock, is that it goes in the groove of this fabric. And when you put it in there, you can actually feel it lock into place. Now, they're telling us that our blocks need to be 2.5 by 2.5. So this block lock is 6.5 inches, but that's okay because it will work. Now, the first thing you might think to yourself, well, I'll just take this ruler, I'll go down to the 2.5, which is right here. I'll just go all the way down here to the bottom, line it up at 2.5 across here and here, and then cut off the excess. I wouldn't do it because this is scragglies when you put it together and it's off just a little bit. So I always take off a little bit of my fabric first. Now they have given us a large block to cut down because it's easier to cut down a large block than it is a smaller block. I always take off the least amount first. And when I do that, as soon as I get up here, now this is locked into place. It's not going anywhere. This is exactly where it's supposed to be. When I look down here, I see this is off because, now I don't know if you can see it, but I have a little bit of fabric here, but as I come to the corner, I get more fabric, which means it's not squared. And that's what you want to avoid because that's how your blocks, when they're finished, get a little bit of a distortion in them that I know a lot of other people won't see them once you get them quilted, but you see them and it bothers you. And you're trying to do this for yourself to start out with. You want to be happy with it because if you're not happy with it, you're not going to want to do it. And you definitely don't want to give it away. Now let me go ahead and put this back on that little bitty. And it's best if you don't have to pick it up. But in this case, since it's got a lock feature on it, this is okay. But if you're doing it with a regular ruler, it'd be a little bit different. So even though I took that little bit off, it's not going to have effect on it. So let's go back down to here. This is where I took it off. And then I would normally move my board underneath it. I have a rotating mat, which I'll use on the next one, because you don't want to be picking this up and turning it. If every time you pick it up to turn it, it's going to change, because you can never put it down exactly where you had it. Now you can pick this lock block up and you can move it if you wanted to, but since it's already this direction, all you have to do is move it down. And so I'm moving it down. It's still locked into place. I'll show you here. See how it doesn't want to move? If I move this, the whole fabric moves. See, because it's locked itself in this groove right here where that seam is at. So I take it down to 2.5. And part of my problem is that my little thing here is not big enough. And so I'm hanging off the bottom of my little mat. Okay, so as I come down, we're coming down to the 2.5. There's my 2.5. And you can see that it, let me get you closer here so you can see it. So you can see I'm down on the 2.5 line, both directions. And so when I cut, I'll have an exact 2.5 inch square. And see how this is locked into place? Let me move it a little bit for you. See that, how it's locked? Because the seam holds on to this little piece. You can see a little bit how it's gray right here. That holds your 1/4 inch seam in there. And that's how that locks into place. All right, let's go ahead and get it back set up correctly so we can get it cut. And if you're not comfortable doing this, the first couple times you do it, take you some scrap fabric and do it. And there we go. There's our 2.5 inch square. Now let me show you how to do it on a regular ruler, if you don't have that kind. And lots of people don't. It's an investment. So if you don't have it yet, and let me bring my rotating mat up here. Now I have 2 square rulers. I have the 3.5 creative grids, and I have the 4.5. So either one of these will work. Let's start out with the 3.5. I wouldn't want to do it with a 2.5, but I don't mind doing it with a ruler that's a little bit bigger. So the very first thing you're looking at is your line going through the middle of your ruler. Okay? And you want to put that on your line of where you sewed your 2 pieces of fabric together. Let me get you a little closer here. So I've put this on my ruler. My ruler on my fabric. And I'm pressing on my ruler. And then I'm going to take off the least amount on both ends. Because remember, when we get done, this is going to be a 2.5. So it's going to be right here and right there. It's going to be that small. Keep that in mind. Here. See how little it's going to be? This big. So I've got lots of room to cut it off. So I'm going to take off this side and rotate it and take off that side. Okay. Now, all I got to do is rotate this, and I can move my ruler, or I can just go ahead, take my ruler down here to, and if you, let me see if I can show you, and I might have to get a little closer. Now, remember now, my ruler was up here, just like this, and I was taking off the top and the bottom. And of course my numbers are going this way, but that's the white numbers. The black numbers are going this way and this way. So if I take this and I don't pick it up, and I haven't picked up anything at all now, and let's just say that I don't have this rotating mat, so I didn't rotate it, all I'd have to do is come down here, and I'm watching the black now, the numbers, and I'm coming down to the 2.5. Now I'm keeping my line straight across the diagonal, and here's the 2.5. And just to give you an idea, if I put this on there, it's exactly 2.5, because this right here is telling me that this is 2.5. Because from the corner to this, it's not 1, it's 1.5. Because this little mark here on both sides of this ruler, this shaded area, is 1/2 of an inch. Okay, that's the way these rulers work. So all I've got to do is hold on to my ruler, take off that end, rotate it, and take off this end, and I have a 2.5 inch. No matter how I did it, regular ruler or the block lock ruler, whichever you want to do. So go ahead and let's cut them all out, and then we'll stack them up here and we'll go on to the next one. Now you want to get out your 4.5 inch by 2.5 inch white, and you want to get out your 2.5 by 2.5 inch black, whatever color you're using. If you're using cream in another color, that's fine also. And we're going to mark, and then you want to pay attention, we're going to mark our fabric. And when we get them marked, before we put them on, we're going to have part of the marks going this way, which is from the bottom up on the left hand side, and then on the right side from the bottom up, because of the way we're going to be putting them on our whites. So when we put them on, let's go ahead and mark a couple so I can give you an example for starters. And we're going to do them on the squares. We're not doing them on the white now. So we're going to mark them diagonally, just like when we were making the half square triangle, same thing. The only difference is I'm going to go ahead and make the line full. I'm not going to put dashes. Now, let's say that you mark them all the same exact way, because it really doesn't make any difference. It's the marking. The marking's not the difference. It's setting them onto your white or your cream, whatever background you're using. That's where we're going to have our determination. So we're going to place one so that it's going from the bottom up, the mark. And I know I used a pink one so you can barely see it, but I guess I could have even used a black one. That's the way one of them is going. And then this one's going to go the opposite direction. This is why I said it doesn't make any difference how you put it on your little piece of square. And we're going to pin this one. And then I'm going to do a close-up here for you so that you can see them and the way that they're angled. See the way that they're going? This one's going from the bottom up, and that's going from the bottom up. And they're meeting at the top. And when we sew down this line, we're cutting off this excess. And when we sew down this line, we're cutting off this excess. I'm going to do a sample each to give you an idea what it looks like when it's done. They've been sewn and they're cut off. They look like this. Then you flip them up and you iron it. What you'll end up with. Now, it wants 3 of each of these. So I have one done, so we're going to go and do 2 more of each to the right and to the left. So let's first, the directions say to mark our 2.5 by 2.5. Now when I sew these, I go, for example, this is going to be folded, this piece here is going to be folded over here. So when I sew this, I will sew a little bit on the right, on the left of the line to make up for my drawing of this line. And if it grabs my fabric and takes it under, then I'll show you what I do in that incident. I don't think it's going to this time around. Remember, we've got 2 that are going to the right and 2 that are going to the left. Don't get them confused and make them all the same direction, because once you cut them, you cannot fix them. If you start a little bit slow, a lot of times it will not take your thread under. I don't have my plate set up for a hole for a single needle. I have it for other stuff because I'm doing a little bit of embroidery and stuff. There we go. Now we're going to iron them all open. Now we have 3 of each cut. And now the directions are telling us to take 6 of our little squares that we have and our 4 by 4 inch background, which is the white. We're going to do right sides together, so make sure you have your right side. And we're going to take these and we're going to sew them each like this on each corner. And pay close attention. You want your line going down this direction, not this direction. We're going to cut these apart. They're all iron. They all look like this. We'll stack them up and set them aside and see what the next thing says to do. Okay, so it wants the rest of the blocks used to build the block. And we're going to make 3 of these blocks. So we're going to take our... Well, that's an oops. This is the wrong color. This was supposed to be black. And now that I'm putting it together, I can see it should have been black with white on the outside. So let me go back to the drawing board and cut more fabric. Now that I got that egg off my face, I can sew the correct ones. Oh, Lordy, I can't believe I did that. So I went ahead and cut out the fabric that I just used. So let's try this again. Apparently I don't know my ABCs nor my colors. Alright, now let's start building it. We're going to take our 4.5 inch, actually, 4.5 inch by 4.5 inch. That's going to go at the top left. Let's see if I can get a picture right. Then, let's flip these over. And we want to take the one that's pointed downward, right, whoops, like that. Make sure it's in the picture there. Yep, okay. And then we're going to take our 4.5 inch square next, right next to that. And then we're going to take our half square triangle that we made and one of our white ones. And this is the 2.5 by 2.5 inch square. And you want to make sure that this little color here goes downward, because, let's move that up a little bit. That's a piece of his ear. So this one's going down, and this one's going down towards the wing. That's what that's going towards. This is our bat. Okay, now we're going to take another one of these, and this time we're taking the other one. So we're going up with it. And then we want one of our black squares here. Right there. And then we want to take, oh, we want to take 2 of those, excuse me. So we have 2 of these. And then we have one of our long ones here. Get my right sides together here. Over. And that's going to be row 1. This is row 2. We need another black 4.5 by 4.5 inch square over here. And then we need another black square down here. And then we need this piece that I messed up going right here. And we're going to take one of those and we need a half square triangle. We want to make sure the dark color black is going downward. We need a white square right here. And then we need this one here. And now we're going to grab our long one that I have buried over here. Let's move it out of the way. This one here, which is our 2.5 by 6.5. And we're going to lay that down here. And that gives you an idea of what he looks like. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to be putting pieces together. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to join on the right hand side. I'm going to join these two pieces so that I can connect them together. Okay, that's the first thing I'm going to do. So let's take this and we're going to put it together. Now I've flipped them upside down so that I can watch this end where the bulk is at, because sometimes when I start my sewing machine, that bulk does not like to go through. And I know a lot of you, it doesn't want to go through on your machine either. So I thought it would be better just to have it on the other side so that I can see it, and then I've pinned it so that I can catch it so that it doesn't flip over on me, and then go ahead and sew it, because it doesn't have an issue when there's bulk coming off of it after it's been sewing, but it has a hard time reading it to begin with. And then I'm just going to go ahead and do all 3 of these since I'm making 3 blocks. I'm just chain stitching these. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to iron these open. Now on all of these blocks here, I went ahead and I pinned it so that it doesn't flip itself over when I go across it. I need to catch the pin a little bit better than I did though. I just don't want it to accidentally catch it and flip it upside down. That's all. I'm doing all 3 of those the same exact way. And these are not, I'm not pinning. This is like prepping the prep. Alrighty, so now I'm going to sew this together. And I'm going to sew these together. And these together. So that's what I'm going to do next. Alrighty, here we go. Do the next set, and instead of doing one at a time, I'm doing all 3 so that when we put them together, all of our blocks will be done. So this is the last little pieces that we're putting together before we create the block. All the pieces together so far like I have, this is what you've got. And so we're going to go ahead and we're going to sew our first and second rows. So we're going to need to put this to this, this to this, and then combine them together, and then these 2 here, and then we'll have the top half of our block done. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to connect the 2 pieces in the second row before I go ahead and connect the first 2 pieces in the first row. You have this at this point of the sewing. Now we're going to take this one and attach it to that one. Now I have flipped these upside down so that I can make sure that I get that piece and it doesn't flip over on me. We have, let's go ahead and we're going to attach these 2 right here, and we're going to be real careful about this point right here. I'm going to show you how to mark it. Here's the concern about that point. If you're not paying attention and you've got this flipped over, you won't see when you come across this. So what I do is I go down here to where my threads cross over, and let me take another color. We're going to use this green here, and I'm going to show you where my threads are at. So I'm going over the top of my thread, and this is how it goes. Now, this is how it was sewn. Okay, hopefully you can see that. So where these 2 pieces cross right there, if you go over that with your sewing machine, you'll take the tip off of that. So to avoid that, you're going to come to the edge of it on the other side of both the crossings, and you're going to mark on your fabric like this. so that you can sew on the mark, but you don't want to come on this side or you'll take the tip off of that. I think that's his ear, if I'm not mistaken. And then we also have to pay attention to the direction of our fabric. So this fabric here is going to the left and this is going to the right so that these two can nestle up together. There's no tips there. So I'm going to pin that. And then where your spot is here, what I normally do is I will take my pin and I'll go right into it, which is right there. Let me see if I can get it to come out the other side. And go down a little bit further. And then I'm going to use my pin cushion. I'm going to lay my fabric on it like this. And we want to watch. We want to make sure that this goes to the left. If it goes to the right, just make it go to the left. Stick this down in that pin cushion. That'll hold it for you so that you can actually pin it. Because I normally pin it on both sides. I'll pin it on this side. And I'll pin it on this side. Like this. And then I can pull that out. So that when I go across that, I'm not going to get it stuck. And it is straight across. See if you can see the pin there. I do need to iron this to the other direction though. But I'm not going to do it right now. So it's going to sit like this, and then you won't lose your tip. When I'm done, I'm going to have a lot of pins going all across here where I'm concerned about that one mark. I'm going to go ahead and pin all three of my pieces and chain stitch these. So then we'll have half of all three blocks done. Alrighty, here we go. I'm going to get the top half of this square finished. Let's take a look at our points. Alright, here's what we're looking at. We have not lost any of our tips because we marked them. None of them. Okay? And you could even go and take a little bit more off if you wanted to, but I'm happy with my points. They all look good. So now we're going to start on the bottom half of the square. That's what you're going to have when it's together. And now for the last part, we're going to connect these two and then these two before we connect the three together. So let's do that first. I am sewing to town, forgot to put the darn camera on. So I've only done part of the first one. So let's get all these done. Hadn't gotten too far when I realized it. Better than having it turned on, thinking I turned it on and then turned it off, so been there before. Let's iron these open. Okay, so now you'll be at this point. So we're going to sew these together and these together, and then we'll come back. So now you should be ready to put this one to that one, and then we'll connect that bottom to that top. So let's do that first. Now we're sewing the last piece on the bottom. So here's what we have so far. We got the top and the bottom. All we got to do is connect them to make our bats. So let's get that pinned together and let's get this finished to match. But you do want to nestle. And when I say match, I'm talking about not nestling. I'm talking about, see, that's nestled. I was talking about the markings. So make sure you nestle where it needs to be nestled at. And that the seams aren't all going the same direction. Because if they're going the same direction, you're going to have difficulty. You'll have to watch this one here. I'm going to have to move all this excess out of there because I got lots of threads on that one. That one you're going to want to mark or keep your eye on it. There's a spot right there where we have to sew over and so we don't lose our tip. So don't forget to mark it. Here's the part that's being marked right here. So I'm going to take my pen and stick it in there. Bringing out the other side. Oh, I gotta go down a little lower. Well, no. And I'm trying to get it so that it's, guess I got too much penned here. Let's take all the pens off. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to get it so that it goes through here on this side without taking the tip. So that would be without taking the tip right there. So you could actually mark it right here. I get my pin to mark. There we go. And as long as you don't go below that spot, we're fine. Now, I don't have enough thread sewn, so I got to go back over that stitch. So I won't go, because I have to go back over it, I won't go from the top, which is where I lose my stitches. I'm going to go from, flip it over and go from here down, because it looks like I have a stitch right here. But you can see it's missing off the top part, so I need to remake a stitch. So I'm going to go from here down instead of from here up. Because see, now you can tell I don't have any stitches right there. And here's my line right there. Go ahead and pin the rest of it. And when I did that stitch over, because it comes out at the top, instead of doing a 2.5, because it'll just come out again, I knocked it down to a 1.8, which made teeny weeny little stitches off the edge. I find that helps a lot with keeping the stitches in. Now I'm going to pin a whole bunch along here. And then we'll sew it. Let's iron them open. Let's take a look at them. Here are the 3 bats. So that's the first block. So now we're going to start on the second one, which is the Wonky Stars. Let's find out what's wonky about them. Okay, here are the fabrics for the next one, which is the Wonky Stars. So let's get started with that. We're going to take our 24 A's 3x3 right here. We're taking them and all the C and D squares, which are the little bitty 2x2 and 1.5 by 1.5. We're going to put the mark diagonally, just like when we did the half square triangles. We're going to put our diagonal marks on both of these. I'm going to use a black friction pen, and then we're going to be putting these on our 3x3 inch white squares. So I'm going to go ahead and mark all these. You guys go ahead and mark all them also. Now that I have them, it wants us to take our black, which is the D's, and they want us to put them so that we sew across here, so that when we flip this over, it'll be on this corner right here before we put our purples on. Now the only thing that's going to be different on these 2 blocks are going to be the middle, which is the F's. There'll be 3 of these. And then the other block will have 3 of these little white and black fabric. Otherwise, all the block, the outer tips of them, are these 3 fabrics right here. So we're going to take our whites and we're going to attach all these little black ones to it. Let's do that first. This half of the video, I'm going to make 1 of the stars. And that's it for demonstration purposes. And then you guys are going to finish it up. Otherwise, this video is going to be hours long. And I know you don't want to watch hours of video. So let me show you how to do one. We'll do that together. And then we'll go from there. And we're going to need 4 of them for each one of our stars. I have 2 tables backed up to each other in this sewing room. So Megan's on the other end. She just got her fabric this evening, and she's working on her labeling. Now the next step, it says to take this purple and lay it over this black. But first we need to cut this off and iron it open. Otherwise it's going to cross over. So let me get over here and let's cut these first. Okay, so here we go. We're going to give them each a 1/4 inch. Now make sure that you put your fabrics right side together, unless you don't want to, because you don't have to. If you want to be different and do a couple that aren't right sides together, you can do that too. I've done that every now and then in some quilts. Changes the texture a little bit. All right, now we're going to iron these open. Alrighty, so you're going to take your purple, you're going to lay it across here, and then I'm going to flip it upside down, and I'm going to sew from this end to this end. If it doesn't work and my machine balks, I'll flip it over. But you want to make sure that you're coming over the little black polka dotted fabric, or whatever fabric you're using in yours. I'm going to make 4 of them. I'm going to chain stitch these. Now, I'm not putting any pins in it, I'm just lining it up. And by it being off the edge here, we shouldn't have to worry about it going down inside the plate or anything. Trim all of these off. You ready to build a star? Let's go for an orange star today. I'm going to put that in the middle. Alrighty, the orange has to be at the bottom. I mean the purple. I looked right at the picture and said the orange. The purple, the purple, the purple. And then we're going to have the white on the outer side. And there we have it, right there. And that's it. And all we're going to do is we're going to make 3 with the orange. And then when we get done, we're going to make 3 with the black. That's it. So let's put them together. Alright, so let's go ahead and get this sewn here. I went ahead and I marked my middle. I already sewed one wrong, and when I got to laying it down there, I noticed it. I don't know how I did it, but I did. So I took it out, and I'm redoing it. It was that 3rd one. Here's what we sewed. These 3 right here. These are attached. We're going to put this one to that one to that one, and that one to that one. So to avoid messing these up, I pinned each one to itself. So I wouldn't end up doing the same thing I just did. I don't know how I already got confused on it, but I did. Alright, so this is what we have. And now we're going to put them together, and you want to nestle your seams. So on the first row, I have my seams going out. On the second row, I have them going in. And on the last row, they're going out again. This way they can all nestle. So let's pin them and let's get them. Since we're not chain stitching because we're only making one, this one's going to be a little bit slow going. Because we can't, I don't want to be pinning both on because I get stuck by pins. They like me. They like to stick me. Now here's the other side. Have our little wonky star. So go ahead and make all your stars wonky. The last thing that we have to do is we have to put our 8x5 and our 12.5 by 5 across the top, and then we'll be finished with our block. So let's do that. Now I'm going to iron this open before I add the other piece to it. Now nothing needs to be specially marked or anything. All I did is pin it. You could use your clips if you wanted to. If you are interested in the block lot, you can get that at the Fort Worth Fabric Studios website. They have it for sale. Let me go ahead and iron this. Okay, here they are. There's the stars. There's 3 each. And the bats. I really like the way that bat looks. That's pretty neat. I hope you liked this video. Give it a thumbs up if you did. This is the end of September, and I will see you in October for week 2. Thanks everybody for watching. I appreciate it. Give me a thumbs up. Make a comment if you like. Subscribe. Click on that little bell so you can get the notifications for the next time. And I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.